Okay, let me. I know Matt's looking something up there real quick. I want to throw up a little something up on the screen here and just ask you guys your thoughts about this. It's a little crazy, a little tinfoil here or whatever. But
Okay.
yeah, it's just something that like when I think about the cover of the next book, and I think about the significance of like a horn, or I think about like the Horn of Winter, or any of these horns that are in the series, and I was mentioning like the idea that John I mean, Sam, all he has to do is give this horn back. You know what I mean? And like, there's so many magical elements or just things that are set up in the series that we never saw show up. We actually see Sam get the horn. We see this whole, we see the dragon glass. We see the whole thing. Like, what comes of that? I mean, what actually comes of that? There's Dragonbinder. You know what I mean? There's Euron and his whole mystical element and stuff. So
Yeah.
with this whole like Nymeria, Matt just proposing the idea that we could have like the Arya show possibly, and that's really the Nymeria show or whatever. And then you've got Snow, which is like John's thing. You can do some of these things. Like again, it's almost like George in his mind has to say, do like a quick, like, I got my story. I know where I'm going with Winds of Winter, and I understand the end of that. But there were things that weren't used that we never saw that are never going to get really seen by this huge like HBO audience or whatever that he could throw out there. That would be really cool that they could kind of bring back in. Because earlier, Jimmy, you had said like, who could we see, right? We're talking about Tormund, we're talking about Benjen, we're talking about just different individuals and then different items, different swords, different like magical items that could come into play. That would be sort of a big deal. Like, what's the mystery
Well,
up
there's
there?
also the time element to the story that we do know in the shows. We don't know it so much in the books yet, right? But there's timeline hopping with Bran.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. That's for sure.
So there's a lot you could play with here. I mean, you could even bend it, genre bend it a little bit into some sort of weird sci-fi stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think what we need to do as people who have loved the books is we need to open up the World of Ice and Fire. We need to go back through and look up North of the Wall references and start to look maybe back through even Fire and Blood. They mentioned some stuff at the wall. When is it Jaehaerys goes to the wall? I can't remember.
Yeah. And he's the old king, and they've got
yes, and his wife goes to Mole Town. It's like the best. I love it. But like these are the things like we need to hear. Like, were there any lore? Was there any stories? Right, the Night's King and the Night's Queen. Like that's something that we could tap into. It just makes you wonder that maybe there's something sitting in my World of Ice and Fire book that I'm not thinking about, talking about North of the Wall that could end up playing into this show.
Yeah, just an element of some magical thing. I mean, we just like the cover of the next book is a horn. I mean, like, sorry, like, I don't know if that's official or not. Is it? Is that official?
It is. It's funny. It's actually not official, but George has shared it so much that people just use it. But it's actually a fan art.
Yeah. Is it really?
It's fan art.
That's hilarious though. Like, because maybe it's not. Maybe it has no significance and it's not going to be like.
I hope it becomes the book cover and they pay that guy, whoever made it.
Yeah, yeah, really. But I'm still stuck on like the story of this whole thing and like where it's going to go. I'm dropping some stuff in our private chat here, just different ideas as to things, like looking at comments where I don't know if you're reading that or not, Jimmy, but someone had an idea, and I just want to give Sam Hussein here some credit, said that a great story or basis for the Jon Snow show is that, like, to start this whole thing off in the beginning, everyone's doing their own thing. Arya's doing her thing, Sansa's doing her thing, Jon's doing his thing, and then suddenly King Bran is assassinated or he disappears. And everyone is shaken out of their comfort life. They're called back into action in order to find out what happens. Was he killed? Was it a faceless man? Arya investigates Essos. I mean, right there, this person's already created something. I mean, that's just one person that, shout out to Sam here, who created something that instigates kind of intrigue or whatever. So again, we've just heard about this show and we've just started to kind of think about these things. But I guess like I haven't even really got my tinfoil cap all the way on yet to start really going crazy. And some people have, and they're really like giving this some thought as to like mysteries that you could kind of go into. And you could rope in Werewood lore and Children of the Forest lore, Night Fort lore, all these different things. So I love this kind of stuff because, again, if they're going to do it, like, it's cool to kind of think about what George might have up his sleeve in terms of, a show like this.
Yeah, I think Children of the Forest is something that I've actually also thought about. Werewood, all that stuff gets played into it. And it's like, it's all going to depend on if Jon gets pulled back south of the wall that doesn't really exist anymore, right? Like if he has to come south like that's really what it comes down to. Because I mean, just Bran, I know everyone was like, why, who had a better story? But like we meme it, but like the idea of his character being king opens up like all of the possibilities. It reminds me a lot of like Paul and Dune in some ways. So I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I'd be down with that.
Yeah, I mean, God, there's so many different directions you could go. I mean, does the realm know that Jon Snow is really the son of Rhaegar and Lyanna Stark? I don't think like the realm really knows that.
No.
I think some of like the inner, higher lords do, but I don't think Emilia Clarke's going to be in it because I think she's got so much stuff going on. But that's obviously right. But I mean, you could still go with a young Griff, like a young Griff that you didn't use at all, comes over and decides to attack as like a Blackfire, and then people find out that Jon is the true heir, and they want him instead because you kill Bran or something. I don't know. I mean, there's so many possibilities. It feels like we're either like you're gonna go like way north and do your own thing, or you're going way south. Does he feud with Sansa because wildlings? Sansa's trying to rule the who, by the way, she isn't really doing like a whole lot. We've looked at her filmography, although she just had a kid, so she's
she's on kid number 2 now.
Yeah, so I mean, just as in terms of acting, she's not doing a lot. She'll probably get pulled into Marvel at some point here soon as they continue to expand the multiverse. But maybe she's like feuding with Jon. He's like, hey, your wildlings keep coming in, and I'm trying to control the north up here.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he comes south because one of his siblings died.
Right.
That's the beginning of the show.
Right. I mean, just think about that. How the stuff, like, if it starts with something like an assassination attempt or someone is dead or whatever,
right?
All of a sudden, like,
yeah,
we're locked in. That's like George ordained, and like he set this up. Because the Bran thing, just real quick, fellas, look at the cave. I haven't done it yet. I haven't gone back and done this in a while. But look at what he's doing. I know he runs and he will leave the cave, and Hodor does this whole thing or whatever. But whoever he is sent there to see and to be with her, Jojen dies. I mean, Jojen is killed and he's ate by everybody up there. The children created the others. This is not a good place. These are not good people, and they don't. Bran does not get some special power there, and all of a sudden he's good. Like, Bloodraven was actually like captured and attached to a freaking tree, could not leave, and he was their thrall. He was they used him. So I don't think people like look at that enough. And so when you think about like maybe alternate endings, I think as an author, you might have all, different ideas, different ways that you could go. Sure, he could be a king. Maybe Bran was always set up to be a king, just not the king we thought he was gonna be. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
who knows,
there's a lot of stuff. If you connect that to like Jon, going north and stuff, and we talk about all this stuff, maybe Jon's whole purpose in the show is to find out not what started, but like how to prevent the White Walkers from ever happening again, like never again, a long night.
Mm-hmm.
And that just is a lore rabbit hole. Like, they just get to dive in, right? They can get as weird as they want.
Right. Well, Jimmy, also too, think about this, if let's say you hear rumors as like Jon is figuring stuff out north and he's figuring out what's going on. He's trying to think about, maybe he's reflecting a bit on what Bran went through. Who was he in contact? No one really knows. He's just come back and he's changed, and it's all this kind of stuff. If he explores this more and feels that there's a dark entity behind his power gain or whatever, the access to werewoods, whatever it is that he has going on, and then he hears about rumors south where things are not so good, and this benevolent King Bran is maybe not everything that we think he should be. I don't know. The assassination is also really cool, but there's just a lot to give it more weight, I guess, than just a mini series of him going around claiming sort of villages and stuff,
Yeah, I mean, I think the most likely scenario though is we're at Hardhome. I would introduce Val. I would have it be like, I would probably have it. It needs to be like, you need to sort of build it out as like his thing, and then you sort of leave it with like a cliffhanger of introducing another character, like a bringing back, bringing back another character. I think is probably the most likely scenario, and the way I think that they probably will do it. So I would probably have it mostly about they're trying to rebuild Hardhome, and there's other wildlings out there that are like pissed off, like, hey, you didn't bring all the wildlings south, man, and a lot of us died because of the White Walkers, and so it's sort of like just a wildling conflict. I would honestly, but I would have it be Val, just so that way you can bring in that character and you can do it. I think it'd be interesting, and then Jon gets a love interest.
Well, yeah, And then that's
there's
what-
some
then one of
other
those-
there's some other threat out there too. Yeah.
Right. That's one of those things like Jimmy was talking about earlier. How, like, when you go beyond the Song of Ice and Fire arc, or you do that, right? But then you also bring in elements that you forgot, like that the show forgot, like the Val element. It was totally we already see that in the books. The show never touched it, and so that's one of those elements, I guess, that would be cool. We mentioned Young Grip and different things, and like you said, I was saying too. We say Amelia Clark's not in season 1, doesn't mean she's not in the season 2, and she shows up at the end like as has been resurrected, or that Bran, this whole quest, he's fighting wildlings, you're making it his show, but then he discovers something more to kind of extend this on. I just don't think it's going to be one thing. I feel like it would be, if it's post George's material, I feel like he's heavily involved in that, and he's going to be, giving them like a good path forward. He loves TV. He wants to make good TV. And these really cool moments, he's like, well, actually, here's some cool stuff you can do with Bran and the Werewood Network and things that I was gonna work in the series. So yeah,
I think one of the things that could be really neat, and I kind of like what Matt said about Hardhome being rebuilt, is maybe not necessarily building a kingdom, but building a place where people don't have to bend their knee. That's the true spirit of the North. And it is maybe a tribe thing where people are saying, you're setting up too much of a society out here. We don't kneel to you or anyone. Right. And so you have this conflict of like, what is the North becoming? And then like at the end of season 1, when the conflict is somewhat resolved or there's a peace, Tyrion shows up. And now, the Iron Throne wants to colonize the North. And then you can explore imperialism this way. Or what if you had a red priestess or a priest show up? Because R'hllor is now unchecked.
Yeah.